Welcome to Prisca Theologia. Today we're going to be talking about the mysteries of the number 33 and how it relates to the path of ascension. Today we're going to be talking about the secrets of the master number 33 and how it relates to our ascension astrophysiologically within the body, and why the Freemasons use 33 as their highest degree, as well as Jesus' life. When you look at it, 30 years that passed and the 3 years that passed after the crucifixion lead up to 33 years of life. And the mysteries that there are 33 vertebrae in the spinal column, and how Jesus represents the Son or the Christ consciousness embodied into human form or God-made flesh anagogically, which allows us to understand that his life story resembles our initiatory story of our life as well on a microcosmic level. So each vertebrae of the spine equals an age of his life. And when we reach the 33 or the 33rd vertebrae of the crucifixion, it happens in the skull. And the skull is known as the place of Golgatha. Christ was crucified at Golgatha. Golgatha means the place of the skull. So when this energy of this purified energy, that it's not a mechanical process in which it rises, the energy has to rise only by the merits of the heart and the divine mother within, the mother of the child Christ. You could say the divine mother of Krishna. Christ means oil, the anointed one. That oil, which is produced in the cerebral spinal fluid, also is in charge of producing the other hormones of the body, including the sexual fluids. Jesus says, his seed that remaineth in him, he sinneth not. And with the parable of the virgins that had oil in their lamps, when the bridegroom came, were blessed. Because when we have oil accumulated in our spine and we live an upright life, our bodies produce hormones at a superior level, and the cerebral spinal cord ends up being flooded with these hormones and allow this energy to rise, this fluid-like vapor to rise similar to a temperature, or like a thermometer, akin to a spiritual thermometer. So this spiritual thermometer rises up each vertebrae according to the trials and tribulations that you're going through in your specific life or your specific journey, and overcoming certain elements of the 4 elements and the material nature, so that you can overcome these lower chakras and start entering into the heart, and then the throat, and then finally the kingdom of heaven, which is the head, which is heaved up. I'm trying to go to the next slide, but it's not letting me now. So every vertebrae is an initiation. When we fall, we lose that initiation, and the oil drops down a vertebrae. Depending on the action, merit, behavior depends on how many vertebrae we lose. So if we're already in the throat chakra and we, lose some energy or have an angry outburst or commit some type of crime against ourselves or others, either mentally, emotionally, or physically, then this energy will lower into the lower chakras. And if you get back into the solar plexus and these chakras down here, you'll become more animalistic. And as the energy rises up to here to the higher frequencies, you become more conscious, self-aware. And when you're more conscious and self-aware, you develop more compassion and are able to think more thoroughly before you commit an action. So we have to live our life utilizing the pineal gland, which is the Poseidon, which Poseidon controls all of the waters of the body. Poseidon's the lord of the waters. Pineal gland's related to Uranus and of course, Poseidon. Poseidon is what allows us to vaporize and evaporate these waters and distill them into a vapor. This whole spinal column system is a distillery. In the ancient scriptures, the Manly P. Hall says in the Occult Anatomy of Man that all of these stories resemble the beautiful biochemical process within our spinal column and nervous system, as well as on an anagogical level, as the soul descends Jacob's ladder into incarnation, the 7 planets, and reascends that same ladder up those 7 planets. These angels representing the different planets and astrological influences and angles of light, which are actual intelligent beings, whereas Jacob laying his head upon the stone represents the human soul. And then he goes up the ladder and sees God face to face and calls the place Peniel. This is showing an alchemical process within the body, but also on a soul level, as within, so without. The stairway to heaven is in the body. Heaven's door is under the skull. Brahman's cave is here. And if you put your eyebrows here to the horizon and simply glance to the horizon 40 degrees up into your eyelids, you will enter the state of alpha. That alpha state puts yourself into an attentive, aware state, which allows you to utilize the higher functions of the cerebrum and start controlling this distillation system. In the YouTube community calls it no FAP or semen retention, or trying to quit pornography, trying to utilize the sexual energy more correctly, is all part of the awareness that Aquarius is bringing to us right now and allowing us to utilize these functions that were forgotten in the age of Pisces and misused. So Jesus knocks on the door. The inner Christ dwells within. He's knocking on the door. Knock and it shall open. Seek and you will find. When we begin to seek and find, Christ comes and knocks on our inner door and dwells within us to have the feast. This is all anagogical, allegorical. Each vertebrae is a dimension of life experience. Depending on where we are in this vertebrae, of these 33 vertebrae, depends on how we are going to perceive life and which paradigm we're actually going to execute our actions on, what we're going to base our morals and activity. Remember, our actions and what we do in this life are based on our beliefs. And if we believe in nihilistic things, like things don't matter and that we all come from nothing, that we're all in a spinning globe, spinning through space, and that we're all going nowhere, or essentially our goal is to go to the void, then essentially we are cutting ourselves short. We're seeing ourselves from a lower, lesser paradigm, when we are actually part and partials of the divine super soul, Radha and Krishna, or Jesus and Mary Magdalene, however you want to see that. And within the body, the spine serves as a spiritual thermometer or ladder to prove and verify in physical reality the acts and actions of cause and effect of the spirit. So at the age of 33, when one reaches this age, they reach a high level of spiritual development. The brain has reached a high point of control over the lower limbic systems of the body, symbolized by Perseus slaying Medusas. Perseus and Orion and Aries, the cerebrum, which is the higher functions of man, using the sword, the spine, to slay Medusa, the lower mind that controls the lower impulses and the cravings of survival, sex, and procreation, as well as like seeking pride and animal dominance. So the brain has reached a high point of control over the lower systems of the body. Like they say, the brain stops developing age 26. And then by age 33, if we're transmuting and living within ourselves and our dharma and our purpose correctly, then we reach a very spiritually mature state of being. And that's when we enter the mysteries of Golgatha, which is not simply just a biochemical process that happens within the brainstem or even the sun going through the ecliptic and the 12 signs of the zodiac, relating to the 12 apostles and also relating to the 12 cranial nerves within our brain, because each of the 12 intelligences relates to each of the cranial nerves, which develops the system of the body. Because the ancients knew that the microcosm was just a macrocosm of the human, of the superhuman. Like, and Levis Levi was saying that we know that there's a super perfect man or God, and that man must be a finite man or God, and that we can develop our conscious soul and attention, bring it in so that we become intentionally individual specks of this conscious personal being, and then we ascend Jacob's ladder up into the kingdom of heaven with our personalities intact, but by defeating the lower ego, or in esotericism related to the inner Satan. But as we can see in the skull, we have things that very much look like the crucifixion on the cross, the lamb in the skull on the left side with looking like a lamb's nose, and various features in the brain resembling activities that take place in the Bible. We know that Aries rules the first stage of the alchemical process, which is calcination. ruled by Aries, which is cardinal fire. And that cardinal fire is what spontaneously is the first formation when the soul descends from the ethereal dimensions into its form to acquire its individualized form. So then it becomes merged with the earth, fire, water, and air, puts to order these elements, ascends the oil of the 33 vertebrae, crucifies at the spinal, at the Golgatha, becomes individualized, permanent. The waters of the body are then fixed and cured and saved or salved. And this carries on after the death of the body without having to reincarnate here, but able to have and produce a body of fire and air, or fire and spirit, or even the highest abode of light and life, depending on one's work in the ninth sphere, which is here in this physical world, here in this physical dimension, where we toil the fields and we learn the lessons. And the Doctrine of Ritual of High Magic by Eliphas Levi, he explains that we have to learn to become toilless and work like a bull, like Taurus, to become masterful and balanced as the scales of Libra, and to initiate all of these 12 zodiac, the symbols and the meaning of these zodiac, and to put them into activity in our life here and now. So that's the mysteries of 33 and how we can ascend this energy up the spine, vertebrae by vertebrae, by consciously putting our attention on the highest ideals of human nature, the highest ideals of our hearts, and our attention into the middle of the Brahma's cave. And we begin to journey up the pilgrimage. In ancient Kundalini yoga, they knew that the ancient science of the chakras, they knew that these chakras were in the body, were energy centers where the spiritual energy coincides with the physical matter, and that at these centers produce the seven intelligences, or the seven planets within. In Christianity, they're known as the seven churches. And now when we activate these seven churches, we activate the flaming sword of the sepulchre. The flaming sword is the spinal column with the seven chakras activated on it. Or we have the caduceus staff of Mercury, or we have the shepherd staff of Jesus. Regardless of which tradition, they're all pointing to this spiritual evolution, this biochemical change that also takes place in the heavens, in the body. It's written about in all of the books. And if we can use it very practically, we can use it to navigate our ways back to the causal planes of existence.
And how it relates to Prometheus in the Greek legend, and how to understand this alchemically and on an internal level. There's been a lot of confusion about this topic, and I feel like it would be beneficial for us to take a look into the inner alchemical mysteries of Prometheus and the mysteries of Lucifer, Phosphorus, the science of desire and non-action. And we're going to be discussing how these two archetypes relate in regards to some of the teachings of Samael Yor and Alvin Boy Kuhn from the Gnostic schools, and how to understand this allegory on the path of alchemical regeneration. So first, we have to take a look at the Torah, which is the rota, and the body is the micro of the macro. And the Torah, the rota, is none other than Jacob the Hill Catcher, which is the 12 signs of the zodiac assembled in the form of Adam Kadmon, which is the celestial man. He is the primordial archetype, or man's blueprint. And this is what the Torah, or the rota will, what Santos has taught us, and this is what it's based on. Now, the body being the micro of the macro, the 12 zodiac, which manifest in the body, and Jacob being Hebrew for the heel catcher, represents the body in its 12 configurations, correlating to the 12 signs of the zodiac. The body is the living temple of the living God. And we know that God is light, and we know that matter is just a manifestation of spirit. You know that spirit has the deity has split into spirit and matter. And as that spirit being the fire and the matter being the water, that spirit descends into the body. And its goal is to transmute and transform and awaken the 12 zodiac, the 12 internal powers, the 12 creative intelligences, as well as overcome each of the negative aspects of each zodiac. Essentially, it's the Mazzaroth, the circle of animals, or the zoo. Man is the measure of, these 12 creatures or animals combined into 1 and 13 being the product. So we have the 12 zodiac, and then man, or the sun, being the 13th. And we have the 12 cranial nerves that correspond and connect to the 12 nerves in the solar plexus, representing the 12 disciples and their journey. And this is all in regards to the biochemistry of the body, as well as how light manifests into the material realm and as the material realm. So, as we know, the secret of creation is in the wave. So we have Jacob the hill catcher, who is Jacob in the tribes of Israel. Jacob being the symbol of the macrocosmos, or as well as the microcosmos, the human body. Starting at Aries, ending at Pisces. Aries being at the top of the head, Pisces being at the feet. And then the cyclical cycle of nature, having it be a round table, putting the head at the toes. So you're always catching your heels. And we go through the 3 light manifest when it first comes from the absolute, which is the supreme personal entity, Christ or Krishna. It manifests into 3 different aspects of consciousness, or it'd be better to say 3 different functions of consciousness. And it was born in accordance with the sine wave. So if we see how the energy manifests at first, it's I am, Aries. After I am was cognized in Adam Kadmon, the first archetypal being, it then automatically by default, Taurus is activated. I have. Once I am is acquired, that I am is now able to acquire, to have desires, goals, aspirations. This is how deity manifests from the top of the tree of life all the way down to the bottom. Finally, after having acquired the ability to even acquire, manifest the ability to think, Gemini. With these 3 aspects, the entire creation came into being. The created worlds and the uncreated worlds, because once thought kicked into motion, forms took place. These are the top 3 manifestations of consciousness, from subtle to dense and individualized. This is how light crystallizes or descends into matter. So the tree of life is more than just the Sephiroth we see here. There's the 3 invisible spheres of the unmanifested light. We have the Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof Or. These 3 hidden Sephiroth of the unmanifested realm, plus the 10 Sephiroth, equal 13. Man, Adam Kadmon, the cosmic prototype being, or the universal father in the Hindu tradition, it would be Manu, the first man, created by Brahma. During virtue, esoteric Kabbalist mentions how Kether is the Malkuth of the unmanifest realm. And we have Malkuth being at the feet. Now, in some traditions, Malkuth is moved up a little bit more to where Malkuth represents right below the sexual organs. But nonetheless, Malkuth being the most dense physical realm, we have Kether here at the top, which is the most subtle, as she explains how Kether is the Malkuth of the unmanifest realm. And that unmanifest realm is beyond even Kether, which is I am that I am. Kether is the cerebrum, Aries, at the top of the head, the crown chakra. So beyond this is the abode of Christ, or Krishna, the Father and the Son. From that energy manifests the Logos, or Kether, the Lamb, Aries, I am, the first cognized energy. First energy that ever manifested was personal. I am means being, to have existence, consciousness, and bliss. And that I am comes from a super personal, unmanifest realm beyond the manifested light. And it manifests in the human body and the brain. As you can see, the similar characteristics of the lamb in the brain canal. As well as if you look deeply into this middle picture of the skull, you can see the old man with his hands wrapped around. It looks like an old man, where we get our old man father figure, or Kether, the Ancient of Days. We have Aries, the cerebrum, or the cerebram. We always have Jesus, the Good Shepherd, always depicted with his lambs. And this is showing the creation of torus fields, as well as all the creation of the individual souls. Each individual person has their own cerebrum, their own inner Aries, their own inner I am, their own personal Kether. They have their own manifest inner I am being that manifest, and that light is the first manifestation, or as we say, the Malkuth, the most dense of the unmanifest. And then, of course, we have Malkuth, the physical realm itself, that where we find ourselves, which has the power of all of these Sephiroth, which we have to activate these Sephiroth as well as the 12 zodiac. And the consciousness, or that light, descends and manifests as Aries, I am. Then Taurus, I have. Then Gemini, I think. And this is how forms are created. So from the cerebrum, or Kether, the light descends down the spinal column into the sexual energy centers. Or we could say that the energy of heaven, or the Father of creation, manifests souls, and those souls manifest in Malkuth, the physical realm, Yesod being the astral plane, or Garden of Eden. We have to move this up. Think of man being more so like Malkuth being there. To move it up a bit, kind of get it corrected. So we have the meaning of Prometheus. Prometheus, we're going to be discussing Prometheus in the light of being that consciousness that descends from Kether down into Malkuth, or the sexual organs, giving us the energy of fire. We know in the story of Prometheus, he's similar to Jehovah. He was creating man in his image in clay. And we know that Prometheus gave humanity, who was created from clay, from the gods, Prometheus being the creator. Humanity was deprived by Zeus of fire, and they experienced drought and not able to have fire, not able to cook, not able to do basic things. Prometheus, seeing this as unjust, went to steal the fire of heaven, steal the fire from the gods, and he took his rod, which symbolizes the spinal column, and took the fire from gods, or the Kether, and descended down into Malkuth, the bottom of the spine. He descends down into the bottom of the spine to give fire to humanity, or the archetypes, the Israelites, in bondage. In this case, to be the humans that he created with clay. And now we know that Prometheus, it is said that Prometheus means forethought, but in Vedic it also is to mean Pramath, meaning to still. So we have two of these, but they both make sense. Prometheus being the light, and then Lucifer, forethought. Forethought being related to intuition, clairvoyance. Now, I know the cerebrum gives the body and the mind access to higher realities. The names of the characters show exactly what they represent. Prometheus, Lucifer, the fire that descends from the top of the cerebrum down into the sexual organs. That Luciferic energy, or Prometheus, is what brings fire down to the created human beings in Malkuth. And with this fire, we either transform that Lucifer, or that urge, the sexual instinct, into Satan or into Christ, or Christus Lucifer. So Prometheus stills the fire in the same way we must still the fire and transmute the sexual impulse. He gives us the ability to. And that emanation begins in Kether, or Aries, the cerebrum, at the top of the head. He descends. The fire descends. Prometheus goes into heaven, stills the fire, brings it down to the bottom of the tree of life where the humans exist in the physical realm. And this happens every day when we wake up and we have the sexual impulse. Lucifer has granted us a bit of his energy. The energy transmutes into forethought, Prometheus being able to, access the higher mind, the inner intelligence that tempts us and tests us and gives us desires to overcome. So Prometheus, being similar to this creation story of Genesis, creates man, Adam, and clay and matter, which means he's the former. He creates the forms, the light. He brings form. And that light, which carries the energy from the topmost Sephiroth, descends into the bottom of the spine to activate the internal archetypes, which are the same way that Moses frees the Israelites, he goes down to Egypt to liberate them. We have the quote from the Bible. He replied, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. I have given to you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven." In the story, Prometheus is punished by Zeus for giving fire to humanity and is chained to the rock. According to the Samael Weor, that rock represents the rock of sex, Yesod, where we do the work, where we manifest into the material realm and split into dualistic opposites, Adam and Eve's, and we have to cooperate to ability to reascend. Now, to be Prometheus punished by Zeus for giving fire to humanity, he is punished by an eagle which eats his liver. This represents the antagonistic lust that is a barrier to the path of the alchemist. The rock is being chained to desire. We read from Alvin Boy Kuhn, spirit goes into torpor when first he plunges into this underworld. Matter stupefies his powers and faculties. So Osiris has overcome with stupor and had to be awakened and regenerated by his own son, represented as the Father's own nature, while dead, but revived again. So the soul that had entered this nether earth were termed sleepers in their coffins, prisoners in their cells, or spirits in prisons. So in the same way, Prometheus is chained to the rock, representing the soul descending into physical incarnation, or Malkuth, and being chained to the desires of the senses, only to be liberated by Hercules, the solar hero. Now, Prometheus stills the fire, punished by the eagle. He's liberated by Hercules from the rock, and the rock represents the mysteries of sex. Chained in lust and liberated by Hercules, the energy of Prometheus Lucifer either transforms us into devils or angels, depending on every day when we get that sexual impulse. If we do it to just ejaculate, masturbate, to sleep around, to lust, to create fantasies, imaginations, to have negative intentions, this energy transforms into Satan and is chained to the rock. But when it's liberated and used in the correct way, it's manifested as Hercules, or Prometheus Christ, Christus Lucifer. All these archetypes mean the same energy, just depends on how it's used. The internal witness, or the Prometheus or the Lucifer, is there to test the initiate, to test the soul in Prakriti, the physical realm, so that it can leave and to ascend to higher realms. Verse from the Bible: "How have you fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn? You have been cast down to earth, you who once laid low the nations. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mountain of assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Zaphon. I will ascend above the top of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. but you are brought down to the realm of dead, to the depths of the pit. What it's explaining here is how the light descends from Kether into Malkuth. It was once upon into the unmanifested realm of Krishnaloka, and now descends into this realm of misery, where we experience the five miseries: pain, premortal existence, death of loved ones, age, loss. And we can transmute these by correctifying our actions, our behaviors, and transmuting this light, this instinctual firepower that Prometheus steals from the gods to awaken the humanity that's trapped in Malkuth, or chained to the rock, or nonetheless chained or in this position where they're without fire. He gives us the impulse to use sex correctly, which is a wonderful gift. Now, phosphorus and Lucifer. Phosphorus is a component of bones, teeth, DNA, and RNA in the form of phospholipids. Phosphorus is also a component of cell membrane structure and of the body's key energy source. Now, the men's sexual energy is comprised of fructose, amino acids, and phosphorus, potassium, and hormones. These hormones are related, the phosphorus and the potassium related to the cell salts, the 12 cell salts, or the 12 stones. And the phosphorus being the light. It's known that in the sexual energy, both male and female, there's large amounts of phosphorus. Now, phosphorus is the manifestation of bioluminescence in chemical form. From Latinized Greek, phosphorus, from ancient Greek, phosphorus, the bearer of light, the carrier of light. That light is carried within the sexual energy that descends from the top of the brain to the bottom of the spinal column, igniting the ability for the initiate to be either turned into Adam, pure human being, Christ, or Satan. And Lucifer is just the carrier of that, the ability, the carrier of that. So it's kind of hard to get mixed up with, Lucifer being evil, or, is he Satan? That does not matter. It's archetypal. It's talking about internal activities that take place in the cosmos and within the human body. Here's a quote from Samael Weor related to this. The one who whitewashes the devil, meaning Satan, turning it into resplendent and primogeniture state, one who dies in oneself here and now, liberates chained Prometheus. Thus Prometheus pays the individual with abundance, because he is Colossus with power over the heavens, the earth, and the infernos. Lucifer, Prometheus, radically integrated with all of the parts of our being, makes us something distinct, a different and exotic creature, an archangel, a terrific and divine power. So this is the energy of what the purity of mind, emotions, and behavior can manifest. It could take this energy that manifests, that's carried within the light, and that vessel transmutes into the alchemical rainbow body. As you can see, the fire descends from the cerebrum, and it's up to us to use it correctly. We can use it to develop love, chastity, laughter, beauty, service to humanity, in which we activate the Sun Tarot card, or we can use it for greed, lust, to masturbate, to ejaculate, to lose all of the phosphorus within us, or the light, and become chained, just like Prometheus is chained. In the same way Adam and Eve are chained in the dungeon, in the same way Alan Boyd Kuhn speaks of this realm being the dungeon, the physical realm, or the tomb. But this tomb is also a womb, because we can birth the inner child or Christ within. The fire or light, the phosphoric light, or Lucifer, that descends into the sexual center. The desire is either transmuted or divulged. If transmuted, it becomes Prometheus, Lucifer, the light bearer, phosphorus, or the Christ, Christophorus or Christos, phosphorus or Lucifer, or Christ, all mean the same. So by becoming an alchemist and using this light correctly, we transmute desire into light, Lucifer. The light descends into our being from Kether, I am that I am, manifest into the three different aspects. I am, I think, I have. And as it manifests into the human vessel, into the physical realm, that light gives us sexual power, or the influence to create, the knowledge of good and evil. Lucifer being the shadow, Lucifer's shadow is Satan. Satan being the energy used in a negative way, and that energy can harm ourselves as well as others. And God gave us free will, so we have to use it correctly. If we divulge the energy we are granted from Lucifer, we're granted liberation, essentially. If we divulge the energy, we are essentially transforming the energy that Lucifer gives us and transforming it into Satan, the negative polarity. So every time we overcome the desire or the orgasm or the negative impulses of the three in the Vaishnava tradition, they say humans are prone to cheating, lying, and stealing. Whenever we overcome these three, or the gluttony, or the desire for pride, this lust or this instinctual energy that is there to tempt us, that light that descends, which is a pure aspect of light that comes down to kind of train us or test us, that instinctual energy then transmutes into light, which is used to gain access into the higher realms, or to just be a good person, for the respect in all matters of being grateful for what we've been given in this life, and be able to use it for the right reasons. Now, the light, fire, or the internal flame, the fire that Prometheus stole, fire has always been paid reference to. The ancient Zoroastrians, the first monotheists, paid reference to fire. The Upanishads said the supreme spirit is seen in the glow of fire and the radiance of the sun. The sun has always been the visible product of an unmanifest invisible intelligence. The glow of fire and the light of the sun is closest we can come to witnessing the spirit of light. So being able to see fire or light in general, we get to take a small peek at the true creator, the eternal creator, which is above Kether. We as humans have the four elements within us. We have our body, the earth, our mind, the wind, our emotions, the water, and the body, earth. And finally, our inner will. And that inner will is the fire within that Prometheus gives us. That sexual energy that's transmuted into chastity and love is cultivating the fire of willpower. And if we can manage to ignite the inner fire, our spiritual flame will purify the gross elements of earth and the water, and transmute them into spiritualized forms, manifesting as bodies of air and fire. Air is a mediating force between the elements and allows them to intermingle. Hence, it's the Holy Spirit. The Spirit is the fifth most subtle element, and the way we reach the ether is through the fire of Prometheus, or this Luciferic energy that's given to us instinctually every day. That is why John the Baptist, who symbolizes the baptism of water, says, "The one who comes after me baptizes with fire and the Holy Spirit." So we have to prepare our inner being to become enlightened by the powers of Christ, or the light of the morning star. Jesus says, "On the offspring of David, the bright and morning star." It's all talking about the intelligent, loving, personal, intelligent light that descends and allows us to progress on the path. Thank you so much.
In the same way a flower blooms in nature, so the spirit blooms in man. In the same way a flower goes through stages of growth and finally blossoms, so in the same way a similar process takes place within our bodies. The story of Santa Claus is symbolic of a hormonal chemical process that takes place inside the human body. George W. Carey states in the book titled God, Man, Word Made Flesh, quote, "There is an automatic procedure within the human body which, if not interfered with, will do away with sickness, trouble, sorrow, and death, as stated in the Bible," quote, end quote. In the Bible it is referred to as the oil of gladness. Now that we are in the age of Aquarius, this information has already been given freely to the public through initiates such as George W. Carey, Manly P. Hall, Samael Uyor, Swami Vivekananda, and present-day teachers that point to the way, such as Bill Donahue, Santos Bonacci, and many others, point towards this internal process that takes place within the human body. We will explain how humanity has to develop these 12 archetypal aspects of consciousness within that relate to the 12 apostles and the 12 cranial nerves, as well as the 12 zodiac, as the ancients knew that the universe is a multifaceted, multi-layered realm that is all interconnected. In the East, religion is termed yoga. Yoga, or religion, is to live in perfect action at all times and all circumstances. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna taught us how to initiate this process. We begin by holding our body relaxed, spine erect, without tension. Legs should be crossed or innate in a way that does not cause too much discomfort. Start by gazing at the horizon at the tip of your nose. A lot of practitioners may mistake this for going completely cross-eyed while meditating. This would be very uncomfortable, so just attempt to slightly look cross-eyed inward towards the horizon, ever so slightly. This is where the Adam Noose is to the Egyptians. This is Brahman's cave. This should not feel uncomfortable at all, but should feel that you reside in a space of peace where the mind enters a supreme stillness and silence. So once you slightly gaze towards the horizon in front of you, ever so slightly, you should feel a magnetic polar pressure from between your eyebrows corresponding to the third eye or ajna chakra. After your eyes are rested in the place stated above, place your tongue behind the front teeth. This allows the electromagnetic energy to complete the circuit. In reality, we should always have our tongue resting at the roof of the mouth when we're idle or walking or simply doing our day-to-day task. The ancient Taoist knew that this is how you complete the circuit and initiate the energy flow of the energy that resides at the base of the spine and allow it to start rising upon the spine and recharging the brain. In the Bible it states, "I will make your tongue stick to the roof of your mouth so that you'll be speechless and unable to rebuke them, for they are rebels." This is a reference to the ancient technique of the mudra, where the tongue rests between the teeth and allows the circuit of the energy to flow upward. Jesus said to become as children to enter the kingdom of heaven. This has 7 different meanings. However, one of them is thus adopting the natural mannerisms of the body of a newborn. As newborns rest their tongue on the roof of their mouth and breathe from the lower belly rather than chest, hence they are in a constant state of yoga. Once these 2 steps are completed, we can go straight into belly breathing. In this way, when you breathe out, your belly should move outward rather than inward, and when you exhale, your abdomen should pull inward and gently squeeze against your intestines at the base of the spinal column. The final step is to rest your observation on the sense of being and feel you connect to the Supreme Para-Atman, or Creator of the universe. A loving feeling is needed. The Taoists use the inner smile to cultivate a feeling of love, joy, and happiness. If this is done while the above states are also being done simultaneously, there's no limit to the amount of bliss and self-knowledge you'll be able to acquire. Hello, today we're going to be discussing some various mantra vocalizations. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive right into it and learn how to stimulate each of the 7 glands, which activate the various different functions of the higher bodies or the more subtle bodies. So this is from the teachings of Crum Heller, who is a mentor of Samael Weor, as well as Samael Weor. And Crum Heller said that an hour a day of mantra vocalization helps give you more knowledge, more wisdom than thousands of books on pseudo, esoteric, or occultism. So really getting into the raw practice of stimulating these higher centers within yourself, combined with the art of what they call sexual transmutation, semen retention, or sexual sublimation, helps take that energy and sublimate each gland and start spinning the chakras in the correct direction, activating it, and actually activating each little function that applies to it. So for example, at the top of the head, have the mantra E, like cheese, E, and that will awaken the intuition faculty. So you have to breathe in all the way, and then on the exhale, E, all the way out. Then we move to the throat, which is the throat chakra, the thyroid gland. Here we activate the clairaudience, the ability to hear the internal planes of existence, to hear the sound and music of the spheres, just like what the ancient Neoplatonists said, to be able to actually hear all that beautiful music. See, Beethoven, Mozart, and all of these different initiates they had the inner ear awakened, so they heard the sounds of the seasons, they heard the sounds of the planets, and as they heard them, they were able to write and scribe them. They didn't invent those songs. They heard the songs from the invisible and scribed them because they had awakened their inner ear, the ear to hear the spiritual sounds not made by physical hammer or sword. So we awaken that with like red, all the way inhale and then exhale the whole vocalization. So that would be the throat. E in the head, in the throat, O in the heart. So that E mantra takes care of the first two, the crown and the pineal, activating the inner sight, the intuition or forethought, the Promethean fire that lets you to become awakened and understand and comprehend the inner light. That inner light brings light to the inner darkness and helps light up the inner planes. So that intuition or that clear sight will be able to let you pierce into the invisible planes and extract information also from everyday occurrences to be able to see the spiritual in the physical and know that this physical realm is just another manifestation of that spiritual invisible plane. So we have awakening the clairaudience in the throat. You have this right here, the heart chakra. Oh, and that is clairvoyance, clairsentience, to be able to feel clearly, to feel the super sensible realms. And then finally, the willpower in the solar plexus. Ooh. And that stimulates the adrenal secretion so that you are balanced in your adrenal functions and are able to be in a balanced state of being and are able to awaken the telepathic center so that you can communicate more synchronistically with your surroundings. We've all had small telepathic experiences. We can make them more frequent by exercising these glands. Each gland is a portal to these higher realities. Each one is developed by the sap of transmutation of that raw fluid that's accumulated in the bottom of the spine and transmuted up through being just a good person, a charitable, chaste person, living up to like the role model, the solar archetypes, the hero, King Arthur, Link, Christ, the higher sun beings, or the Jupiterian heroes, or being a Uranus, or these are all what we aspire to be, as above, so below. The miniature wants to be like from whence it came, the whole, the one. And finally, we go down to, after the ooh, we go ah, and that ah is for the thymus gland, which activates the immune system. And the thymus gland actually becomes degenerated over a long period of time because we waste the sexual energy. So if we retain the sexual energy, we would not have this gland that would become dissipated. They say the pineal gland atrophies, the thymus gland atrophies, and sooner or later, all the glands atrophy. So we need to keep, the prostate gland, the uterus gland, the adrenal gland, the heart, the thymus, the throat, the pineal, and pituitary gland all need to be energized with electrical impulses, and the chemical fluids and hormones need to be flowing up the river into the spinal fluid through living actively, engaged in life, being conscious, being loving, being serene, staying away from the epitomes, being being a drunkard, being a thief, being a fornicator, being someone that completely just lives in the animal passions or the lower three chambers of the chakras, who's not building up any pressure that's allowing that inner pressure to allow the oil to rise and nourish each gland. So was it E in the head, and the throat, O in the heart, ooh in the solar plexus, ah in the thymus, hum in the sacral chakra. So prostate or uterus, vibrate it internally. Hum. That vibration of that gland helps vibrate the fluids and helps electrically impulse them with the sound, because sound is light. That energy in there helps that energy transmute and vaporize into a vapor up the spine, and also helps eliminate any like buildup of blood. And finally, the last one, like snake. And when you do this, you pull slightly up on the perineum, tongue at the roof of the mouth. Bring it up, tongue at the roof of the mouth. Pull up on the perineum like you're holding your urine. Feel it vapor up the spine, and that will be the final mantra to help nourish all the glands. Now do this all to your physical capability. I'm not a medical doctor or medical practitioner, so please research this on your own. Take it and utilize it for your own intelligence and extract whatever that you feel is necessary to help heal you. This practice combined with sexual transmutation or tantra is definitely highly beneficial according to the masters. And by utilizing these techniques, we can kind of blossom these flowers, reorganize our data centers of each chakra. We're reorganizing and tuning them in the same way if we were a guitar, we're tuning each string. Each string is a chakra, the 7 strings, the 7 days of the week, the seven churches. These are all related to these 7 portals within the body, or the 7 wandering planets. So we utilize these functions to awaken these higher centers. Thank you so much. Bye.
The topics are going to, I just want to have like a little intro to what we're going to be learning today. So today's lesson is going to include mysteries of the animal impulse and how to transmute it, how to transmute desire into light, creating an inner resistance that leads to the ignition of the kundalini fire. And we're also going to learn how to activate forethought and intuition, and what is Lucifer and how to use it. And we're going to be relating to 2 mythologies, cosmic psychologies of mysteries of Prometheus, and we're going to correlate it to Lucifer. We're going to show the chemical compounds, how it relates to us biochemically, and how we can actually utilize the mysteries that Eliphas Levi taught on how to actually create this inner resistance that extracts the light from desire. So we're going to basically learn how to turn all of the animal impulse desires into light by elevating them and increasing them within ourselves. So share, let's see. And then I just need to be able to share my screen. And I'm going to go here. So just starting off with this inner fire, this impulse is related to the fire and the light. And that light is what descends into our bodies every single day of our entire birth until starting at the age of 12. When we hit puberty, we begin to get a light deposit within our bodies every single day. And this is a chemical manifestation of the fire. And when we learn about the fire, we know the ancient Zoroastrians, like the first ones that conceptualized monotheism, or essentially knowing all is one, or emanates from the one, paid reference to the fire. This fire is the internal fire that gives everyone their individual I am. It's the spark of the fire. So we're sons of the fire. And the Upanishad says the supreme spirit is seen in the glow of fire and the radiance of the sun. And the sun has always been the visible product of the unmanifest. So when we're utilizing that energy from the sun, that fire that we see in the sky, there's an inner resonance within us that connects to it, because we actually have a part of that deposited into this physical body. And that is what has been leading us and growing us and maturing us. And it happens in octaves, like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, da.
throughout your whole life, you're going to be increasing in octaves until you reach the appropriate octave to get to the next. It's not about getting to the next phase, but it's about getting to your natural organic spiritual state where you become like an archetype rather than like right now you could say that we're like physical molded clay endowed with divine ideas, divine mind, a divine soul, an animal soul, and all these different aspects. But what we want to do is transmute that and go to the planes of existence where we're a natural archetype, or we become one with our inner guidance or our inner ray, and we lose the aspects like our crude earthly body and our watery influxual water. And instead we would have like air and fire with an ethereal body, which is a higher nature. So through the process of alchemy, we're always trying to refine this and cultivate this. So we have to work with the fire, which is working with Prometheus, working with Lucifer. And we as humans, we have the four elements within us. The four elements make up, earth, air, fire, water is our body, our air, and our thoughts, our mind related to the air, and our breath, of course. And then we have the fire, which is the will and the impulse. And we have the spiritual nature being the witness. So these elements combine and we have like our miniature universe here within our body. So if we manage to ignite the inner fire, our spiritual flame will purify the more gross elements of earth and water. Now, air is the mediating force between the elements and allows all of these elements to intermingle. So the spirit, being the fifth most subtle element, is the way that we reach the ether. And in order to get to the ether in the fifth element, we have to go through the fire. We have to go through the sun. And Jesus says, no one gets to the Father except for me. We have ether, Father, and ether, and we have the fire, the Christ, the spiritual flame. And we have to go through that portal in order to reach the universal ether. So that is why John the Baptist symbolized the baptism of water and says, the one that comes after me baptizes with fire and the Holy Spirit. So let's see here. I'm going to now share my screen. Minimize that. And we're going to go to the keynote. So, utilizing the myth of Prometheus, and when I say myth, I mean cosmic psychological drama. It comes from the higher planes of existence and plays out within our life, and we perceive and write about it using astrotheology, which allows us to come to these conclusions. So we have to learn how to steal the fire from the gods. In the myth of Prometheus, Zeus creates, there's a creation of man like clay. They say they create them out of clay. And of course, the Zeus and the gods are above, and then Prometheus being the mediator, the one that is like the medial between humans and God. And Prometheus essentially doesn't like the fact that the gods created the humans, but they said that they can't use the fire. And Prometheus, being rebellious, decides to climb Mount Olympus up to the brain to steal the fire from the gods. And he comes back down with the torch, and he's rebellious. So he comes down and he gives humans fire. And, from a perspective of literal or just looking at it literary, it looks like a myth of, he's doing the right thing. He's overcoming, the gods don't want to hide this from humans, but Prometheus is being someone who is rebellious and a good-hearted person. He wants to go ahead and share the fire with the humans. So he goes up and steals the fire. The gods get very mad and they chain him to a rock. They say, for eternity, even though you're eternal, you will be chained to this rock, and an eagle will be eating your liver, and his liver regenerates. So, because he's a titan, he's immortal. So he has to experience the suffering. And he says, we'll let you go if you just decide not to disclose the mysteries of fire to humans. And he decides to still be rebellious. And then he's later saved by Hercules, of course, the higher nature. So we're just going to break this down really quick. Humans, the fire is the sexual energy, the sexual animal impulse. And when humans were gifted this, they had the ability to procreate and they had the ability to transmute. Now, the play on this is that nature kind of gives us a challenge. to do this. So nature, to the average person doesn't necessarily push them towards this. In fact, they would have to fight the inner fire and transmute it. It wouldn't just happen very easily. So this is kind of the allegory of like the gods hiding the fire from man, not allowing them to understand the power of the inner fire within and how to transmute it. Prometheus being that Christic principle. Now, Prometheus actually means forethought. So in Greek mythology, Prometheus means forethought. So the Titan god of fire, Prometheus, is best known for defying the gods by stealing fire from them and giving it to humanity in the form of technology, knowledge, and more generally civilization. Now that's a very broad, literal, historical perspective. From the alchemical perspective, he's defying the nature demigods from, and he's allowing us to awaken our inner intuition, our forethought, our individualized higher intellect that allows us to have intuition. And that intuition guides us and helps understand that, hey, we can use this energy more than just brute pleasure. We can use this energy for more than just sense gratification. Yes, we can have children with it, but what else could we do with it? So when Prometheus descends from the heaven, Mount Olympus down to get the fire, this is symbolized with that fire that descends in the body every single day. And for every day of our life, we're gifted a certain amount of this fire, and it's up to us to decide what to do with it. And usually people that are very in tune with their higher nature, who are artists or humanitarians, or they're working on lots of projects, and they're working very physically with their bodies and enhancing and improving themselves, they're stealing the fire from the gods, because the gods just want the fire to procreate, to just do what nature wants it to do. But when we become rebels like Prometheus, and we understand that we can have the ability to have forethought and intuition and have a better idea of our actions, we then begin to say, nope, we're taking this fire for us and giving it to humans. Now, the humans down at the bottom of Mount Olympus obviously represent the bottom of the spinal column, and Mount Olympus being the brain. So that fire, when it comes down and that fire is ignited, humans have knowledge or the ability to activate their higher nature. So this is how Prometheus steals fire from the gods and brings it down to humanity. Now, Prometheus is punished by being chained to a rock. He's being chained to the rock of sex, or Malkuth. On the tree of life, the rock would be here. He's working on the sphere of those impulses. And because when we decide to transmute, then it's almost akin to that scorpion eagle trying to eat and peck out our liver every day. We have to go through lots of suffering to sacrifice the animal pleasure. But in the end, Hercules comes to save us, because Hercules being the solar hero and Prometheus being kind of like Arjuna, or possibly more like a John the Baptist figure, we have Hercules that finally saves him from the rock and liberates him.